It is amazing that the damage, a lot of it, and injuries can be done in just a matter of seconds of shaking. It'll take weeks, maybe months to repair all of that. Christina live tonight in Napa for us. Christina?
Yeah, we're downtown Napa in the historic center on Brown Street, where most of the significant damage, the images that you've been seeing over and over again on TV, can be seen behind me. This beautiful historic building with part of the roof partially collapsed. There's been no work done on these buildings today. In fact, the street's been cordoned off. Besides journalists down on the street level and us up here on a parking garage level, there aren't many others around. There residents may be walking by with their dog and taking a look at some of the damage, but not a lot of work being done here yet. There's still in the assessment phase. They're trying to figure out what needs to come down and what can be fixed. We'll take a look at some of those issues. We'll look at how winemakers are dealing with the earthquake, the aftermath of the earthquake, and some of the most injured folks, how they're faring coming up. Dale?
Christina, thanks. Yeah. And now we continue our Napa earthquake coverage with Christina in Napa and joined live tonight by Nick Monticelli. Guys?
Yes, Nick has been looking at buildings today and talking with folks that are inspecting these buildings and trying to figure out what's red tagged, which means shut down, what's yellow tagged. And it must be so depressing for business owners to just wait and hope that their building is structurally sound enough for them to continue.
Yeah, there's so many different emotions running the gamut here in the Napa area. You've got those red tags that go onto a building, and I personally thought that once you get that red tag, it's kind of like the seal of death. That's it. But it's actually not true. The red tag just means that it's not safe to go into that building at that moment. They have to call the engineers, they have to call the inspectors, and have them get inside of that building or house to determine what they need to do to make it safe. So that doesn't mean that the building is a complete loss. The yellow tag is just simply a caution. It means you can go inside, get your valuables, get the personal items that you want. If it's a business, go get the money or the jewelry or whatever it may be, and then you have to get back out of there and then go through the same process.
And earthquake retrofit does not mean earthquake proof, you found out.
No, apparently I was ignorant when it came to that. So I was talking to one of these structural engineers from a company out of Sacramento, and he was called in to help with some of the assessment. He was explaining to me that a retrofit does not mean the building is not going to fall apart or the bricks are not going to fall off. It just provides extra time for people to get out of the building, and that potentially, for instance, this building behind us, you can see what happened there is that there are two layers of bricks. There's that red brick on the first layer and the yellow brick on the outside. The retrofit on a building like that would prevent the majority of that exterior brick from falling off, which actually happened here because, as you see, only about maybe 10% of that building came down. It could have been so much worse. So the retrofit is simply to prevent it from falling very fast so people inside can get out.
Now they just have to find all of the structural engineers that are available to come to Napa now and help with all of this, because there's so much to be done. This Brown Street right here is completely shut down to pedestrian traffic, and there's been no one here today doing any work on it. So.
No, and what's amazing is that the Napa City has called in so many people to get help, and they're telling us that they think they can get the inspections done by the end of tomorrow, and that's all of the businesses and all of the homes. Of course, not every single house here has to be inspected. It's just the one that people are calling and saying, I'm not sure if I'm good or not, so will you please come and take a look?
All right, so lots of building damage that still needs to be inspected. Also, people are still recovering from injuries, and one of the most significant was the injury of a child that was hurt when a fireplace came down on top of them. Damani Lewis has been following that story, had a chance to actually talk to someone in that family today and find out the condition of this young person. Damani?
That's absolutely right, Christine. I got a chance to speak with the young 13-year-old Nicholas Dillon, better known as Nicky to his family members and friends.
This fall on News 10.
I'm Christina Mendonca in downtown Napa. This massive earthquake came on the eve of the busiest time of year for Napa Valley winemakers. It's the heart of the crush season will begin very shortly. Many of them are starting to harvest now, and the harvest is even earlier because of the drought. So as all of these winemakers are cleaning up from the massive damage many of them have suffered due to the quake, they're also looking at their busiest time of the year. Barrels on top of bottles and the lifeblood of their business flooding the floor. It's cleanup time at Robledo Winery, but the production manager says he has a lot to be thankful for.
I was just happy all my family was okay. This is all material stuff, so as long as my whole family's okay, I'm fine with it.
A few cases of wine and 20 expensive barrels damaged or broken. Others precariously balanced in need of adjustment. But like the weather, these farmers have taken the earthquake in stride because harvest is just days away. What would you normally be doing at this time? We're getting ready for crush, right?
Yeah, we'll probably be getting ready for crush. We're probably going to start bringing grapes early next week.
Regardless of what happens, harvest is continuing.
At nearby Ceja Vineyard, the harvest is the only thing keeping Amelia's mind off the losses and the trauma she felt at being jolted awake with everything around her falling.
We need to be doing something. We cannot just be thinking about, well, did we lose a lot of wine? And that's obviously in the back of my mind because we have about 7,000 cases stored at a warehouse, and we don't know yet what happened to that wine. So tonight we will continue harvesting our Pinot Noir grapes here in Carneros, and they are so sweet and succulent. It really makes me happy to be alive because yesterday at 3:21 in the morning, I was very, very scared for everyone's life in Napa County.
Her tasting room has been yellow tagged, while a few doors down at Gustavo Brambila's tasting room, it's a simple cleanup and a souvenir in the floor of Sunday morning's quake.
So I came in this morning, and as we moved the stuff, I noticed it yesterday, but I really didn't pay attention when it was dark. But as I was vacuuming, a lot of chunks had popped up, and it was sure enough concrete. It was concrete, and paint marks were getting sucked up by the vacuum cleaner.
Everyone we talk to is thankful, and like most farmers, have little time for hand-wringing. The busiest part of their year is about to begin.
The flavors are amazing, and this is going to be another stellar vintage in Napa Valley.
And you're always going to remember this vintage.
Oh
this year.
Boy, I actually, the only glass that didn't break at our downtown tasting room, we're going to put it in a shrine.
Amelia shares the concerns about her wine that a lot of other winemakers have. A lot of these winemakers store all of their vintage in these huge warehouses that are 3 stories high, and that wine is stacked. So a lot of those warehouses have not been checked yet. They need to get in there and assess what's been damaged and what's been lost, what's been saved. So a lot of these winemakers are going to go the next couple of days, perhaps the next week, without knowing if their entire vintage is gone. But still, the harvest continues, and they have to continue with it. Dale?
Well, yeah, I mean, those grapes decide when they're ready to be picked. I mean, it has to do with the sugar content, as you know, and you put it off for a couple of days, and it's going to be a different, kind of wine. Not as good, maybe. All right, Christina, thanks.
Yes.
Good luck to them out there. Coming up, all new tonight on News 10 at 6. We're all familiar with the bear on our state flag, but one group is replacing it with